The mysterious arrival. The world changed in an instant. It began on a quiet evening, just like any other. People were busy with their lives, some watching TV, some stuck in traffic, others lost in their phones. But then, the sky tore open. A massive object appeared in Earth's orbit. It was not a meteor, not a satellite. It was something alien. Governments went into panic mode. Every military base around the world went on high alert. Fighter jets scrambled, radars locked onto the object, and defense systems prepared for the worst. The White House, the United Nations, and every major world leader were on emergency calls. Was it an invasion, a warning, or something else entirely? Then a message came. It was broadcasted everywhere, on TV screens, radio stations, even directly into people's phones. It was a calm, clear voice, speaking perfect English. "We seek an audience. Our princess needs your help." Silence fell over the world. The alien ship. NASA telescopes zoomed in on the object. It was a colossal spaceship, unlike anything humans had ever seen. It wasn't made of metal, but something smooth, dark, and shifting, almost as if it were alive. The ship had no visible weapons, no sign of aggression. It simply floated above Earth like a silent giant, waiting. Inside secret military bases, scientists and generals argued. It's a trick. Why would an advanced alien race need help from us? If they wanted to attack, they would have done it already. No one could agree. Then, a second message arrived. "We mean no harm, but time is short. Will you meet us?" The world leaders had no choice. A meeting was arranged. The landing. The aliens agreed to land in a neutral location, a remote desert far from any major city. The meeting place was chosen carefully. If things went wrong, there would be no civilians at risk. Military forces surrounded the area, tanks and helicopters at the ready. Scientists, diplomats, and elite soldiers stood in silence, waiting for the first real contact between humans and an alien species. Then the ship opened. A section of the smooth black surface melted away, revealing a bright, glowing doorway. A figure stepped out. She was tall, elegant, and alien. Her skin was silver blue, shimmering under the desert sun. She wore a long, flowing robe with symbols that glowed faintly, like constellations, but it was her eyes that sent a shiver through everyone. They were too deep, too knowing. They looked ancient. She took a step forward, and in a clear voice, she spoke. "I am Princess Zyra of the Selvari Empire. We need your help." The first contact. No one spoke. No one moved. The entire world watched through their screens. A high-ranking general, chosen as Earth's representative, finally found his voice. "What do you need from us?" he asked cautiously. Princess Zyra hesitated, just for a second. But in that second, something in her expression changed. Fear, pain, regret. Then she answered, "We need something only humans can give us. We need your DNA." The air turned cold. Some gasped. Others whispered. The soldiers gripped their weapons a little tighter. Why human DNA? Was this a trick? Was humanity about to become an experiment? The general narrowed his eyes. Why? Zyra's lips parted as if she wanted to explain, but then she stopped. Not here. Not like this. She turned and gestured toward her ship. "Come with me, and I will tell you everything." The humans stared at her, at the massive alien ship waiting behind her. It was a choice, a dangerous one. To enter was to step into the unknown. But refusing, that might mean war. The decision had to be made, and fast. The screen faded to black. The impossible request. The world held its breath. The mysterious alien princess, Zyra of the Selvari Empire, had made an impossible request. She needed human DNA to save her people. But why? The question echoed across the military base, in government halls, on television debates, and through millions of messages and calls between ordinary people. Was it a trap? A lie? Or was she telling the truth? No one knew. But one thing was clear: humanity had to decide. The mission begins inside a top-secret military base, deep underground. A group of world leaders, scientists, and elite soldiers gathered around a long metal table. On one side sat the humans, generals with stiff postures, scientists with furrowed brows, and political leaders whispering among themselves. On the other side stood Sci-Fi. She remained calm, her glowing silver-blue eyes scanning the room. But there was something in her expression: tension, maybe even desperation. Finally, General Harris, the highest-ranking officer in the room, spoke. "Why human DNA?" His voice was cold and sharp. Sci-Fi hesitated, just for a second. Then she sighed and placed a small metallic device on the table. A hologram flickered to life. It showed a planet, a dying world. The skies were dark, covered in swirling red clouds. The oceans had turned into thick black sludge, and in the middle of a vast desert stood the remains of an ancient alien city, its towers crumbling, its streets empty. Sci-Fi's voice was quiet when she spoke. "This was Selvaris, my home. It is gone now." Silence filled the room. Then Sci-Fi changed the image. This time, it showed her people, the Selvari. Tall, graceful, silver-skinned, but something was wrong. Their bodies looked weak, their faces tired. In some, their skin was cracking, as if turning to stone. "A disease," Sci-Fi said. "A sickness that has been killing us for generations. We thought we had time to find a cure, but we were wrong." She took a deep breath before continuing. "We lost all our men." The room froze. "What?" one of the scientists asked, leaning forward. Sci-Fi nodded. "Our males. They died first, one by one. Without them, we cannot reproduce. Our species is dying." The humans exchanged uneasy glances. "And you think humans can save you?" General Harris asked. Sci-Fi's eyes locked onto his. "Yes." She tapped the hologram again. This time, it showed something shocking. A DNA sequence, human DNA, blending with Selvari DNA. The hybrid code stabilized, glowing with energy. "We have studied many species across the stars," Sci-Fi explained. "But only humans. Only your DNA is compatible with ours." A chill ran through the room. The meaning was clear. Sci-Fi wasn't just asking for help. She was asking for the future of her entire species to be linked with humanity. The human dilemma. The room erupted into chaos. "This is insane," a politician shouted. "They want to mix our species. It's unnatural. It could be the greatest discovery of all time." Some saw hope. Others saw danger. Dr. Elizabeth Carter, the leading scientist in genetics, stood up. "Wait," she said, her eyes locked on the hologram. "You've already tested this, haven't you?" Sci-Fi looked at her, hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Yes." A murmur spread through the room. "And?" Dr. Carter pressed. "Did it work?" Sci-Fi closed her eyes. Pain crossed her face. "Only once." The humans leaned forward. "And what happened?" Sci-Fi's voice was almost a whisper. "She died. The experiment that failed." For the first time, Sci-Fi looked truly vulnerable. "We tried, but the hybrid could not survive. Something was missing. Something we could not fix." She turned to Dr. Carter, her glowing eyes pleading. "We need your help to do it right." A heavy silence followed. This was bigger than anyone had imagined. They weren't just being asked to share DNA. They were being asked to engineer the next step of evolution. And the worst part, if they refused, an entire species would die out forever. The decision. The debate lasted hours. Some argued it was too dangerous. Others said it was a responsibility. The military wanted control. The scientists wanted knowledge. But in the end, one truth remained. This was a chance to change the universe. Finally, General Harris stood. "We will send a team." Asterisk, 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 asterisk. A group of scientists, diplomats, and elite soldiers would enter the Selvari ship and see the truth for themselves. They would witness the crisis. They would study the disease. And they would decide, will humanity save the Selvari, or leave them to die? As the humans prepared to step into the alien ship, none of them realized. They weren't just walking into another world. They were walking into the unknown future of two species, and not all of them would make it back. The truth about the Selvari. The decision had been made. A team of scientists, diplomats, and elite soldiers was chosen to enter the Selvari ship. Their mission was simple in theory but impossible in reality. Verify the truth about the alien disease, study the hybridization process, and see if human DNA could really save them. Ensure humanity's safety, because no one fully trusted the Selvari yet. But what none of them knew was that the truth they would uncover was far more terrifying than anyone imagined. And not all of them would return. The boarding. The Selvari ship was unlike anything humans had ever seen. As the team stepped into the alien vessel, the air changed. It wasn't just cooler. It felt heavier, charged, as if the ship itself was breathing. Dr. Elizabeth Carter, the lead geneticist, whispered as she looked around. "It's alive." The walls were smooth, shifting between metal and something organic. Faint blue light pulsed through veins that ran along the corridors, like a heartbeat. General Harris, leading the security team, kept his hand near his weapon. He didn't like this place. "Stay close. No one moves alone." The doors opened silently, as if the ship knew where they wanted to go. And deep inside, the Selvari were waiting. The silent city. The humans expected a crew of alien soldiers, maybe scientists, maybe guards. But what they found instead was emptiness. The halls stretched endlessly, lined with hollow chambers. The silence was unnatural, oppressive. Where was the Selvari civilization? Finally, Zyra led them to a massive central chamber, a domed space with high ceilings, walls lined with floating glass-like orbs, each one filled with glowing liquid. And inside each orb were Selvari. Hundreds of them, motionless, silent, trapped in some kind of stasis. Dr. Carter stepped closer, pressing her hand against one of the orbs. A Selvari woman floated inside, her face perfectly still, as if she had been asleep for centuries. "This is your crew," Dr. Carter whispered. Zyra hesitated, then shook her head. "No, this is my species." A chill ran through the team. "What do you mean?" General Harris demanded. Zyra's voice was heavy. "These are the last of us. The extinction crisis." Zyra walked toward the center of the chamber, where a massive structure stood, a pulsing, glowing sphere connected to the orbs. "Our world died," she said softly. "The disease took everything. We had no choice but to preserve those who were left, in the hope that one day we would find a cure." She turned to the humans, her silver-blue eyes filled with desperation. "And that cure is in your DNA." Dr. Carter scanned the floating Selvari, her mind racing. "But why human DNA? There are millions of species in the galaxy. Why us?" Zyra hesitated, again. She had done this before, always holding back. "Because you are different." Dr. Carter narrowed her eyes. "How?" Zyra finally spoke the words she had been afraid to say. "Because you were never supposed to exist." The forbidden secret. Silence. The words hung in the air, heavy and impossible. "What do you mean?" General Harris demanded. Zyra's gaze flickered to the glowing sphere in the center of the room. Her voice, for the first time, was uncertain. "Humans were an accident." Dr. Carter felt her stomach drop. "Explain." Zyra moved toward a control panel. With a wave of her hand, The entire room shifted. The floating orbs vanished, replaced by a holographic projection of the galaxy. Stars spun, planets flickered, and then Earth appeared. We were among the first civilizations in this galaxy, Kyra admitted. We watched many species rise and fall. But humans? We never expected humans. She touched the hologram, zooming in on Earth's past. Our ancestors modified life on many worlds, shaping it, guiding it. But Earth was different. Something interfered. Dr. Carter stepped forward, eyes wide. What are you saying? Zyra turned to face her. I'm saying, we don't know where you came from, and that terrifies us. The horror of evolution. Dr. Carter's breath hitched. Are you saying humans aren't natural? Zyra nodded. Not in the way you think. We have mapped the genetic history of countless species. Every civilization follows a pattern of growth, mutation, and evolution. She pointed at the hologram of Earth. But humans, you are too fast, too resilient, too strong. General Harris frowned. That's a bad thing. Zyra's expression darkened. It's unnatural. She turned back to the orbs of her dying people. We spent centuries trying to understand why you exist, and in the end, we found only one answer. She turned back to them, her voice a whisper. You were engineered. The nightmare possibility. The humans froze. Engineered. By who? Why? General Harris took a step forward. Are you saying some alien race created us? Zyra didn't answer immediately. Then, finally, she spoke. No. She turned back to the orbs, touching one gently. I'm saying that something else did, something we don't understand. Dr. Carter's throat was dry. And you think human DNA can save your people? Zyra nodded. Yes, because whatever force created you, it made you immune to the disease that is killing us. The implications were terrifying. Had humans been designed to be superior? Had something unknown shaped them? And if that was true, did that mean whatever created them was still out there? The final decision. The chamber was silent. Finally, General Harris straightened. We're taking this information back to our leaders. Zyra's voice was urgent. We don't have time. If we wait too long. Dr. Carter cut her off. Then give us a reason to trust you. Zyra's expression tightened. Then, finally, she nodded. Then let me show you something else. She gestured toward a door at the far end of the chamber. Beyond it, she promised, lay the final piece of the puzzle. The truth about humanity. And the real reason the Selvari were dying. The betrayal. The room was heavy with silence. Zyra had just revealed the unthinkable. Humans were never supposed to exist. She had shown them the genetic anomalies, the impossible evolution, the hidden secret of Earth's past. Now she was offering them the final piece of the puzzle. Come with me, Zyra said. What I show you next will change everything. Dr. Elizabeth Carter, General Harris, and the rest of the human delegation exchanged wary glances. They had already stepped too far into the unknown. But something about Zyra's tone, about the way her silver-blue eyes avoided their gaze, sent a shiver down Carter's spine. Something wasn't right. And she was about to find out why. The forbidden door. Zyra led them deeper into the ship. The hallways shifted around them, walls pulsing faintly, as if the ship itself was alive. The deeper they went, the more the lights dimmed. Dr. Carter glanced at the walls. Something had changed. The smooth metallic sheen was giving way to cracks, dark veins spreading like an infection. She nudged one of the soldiers, Sergeant Alvarez, and whispered, "Do you see that?" Alvarez frowned. "Yeah, this place looks like it's dying." Then they reached a door unlike any other. It was massive, covered in ancient symbols, glowing with a sickly blue light. Unlike the rest of the ship, this door looked old. Too old. Zyra turned to them. Her expression was serious. Beyond this door lies the last secret of my people, the truth about the disease, and about humanity's role in all of this. She hesitated, then added, "Once you see it, there is no going back." General Harris exhaled sharply. "We're already in too deep. Open it." Zara placed her hand on the door. It hissed open. What lay beyond was not what they expected. The nightmare within. The chamber was massive, stretching out into darkness. Rows upon rows of tall, glass pods lined the walls, each filled with strange, motionless figures floating in a glowing blue liquid. But these were not Selvari. Dr. Carter's heart stopped. They were human, or at least something close to human. The bodies inside the pods were distorted, their skin pale, their limbs longer than normal, their eyes too large, their bones slightly wrong. But the genetic markers were clear. These were genetic experiments. A chill spread through the group. General Harris clenched his fists. "What the hell is this?" Zara didn't answer. Dr. Carter stepped closer, reading the alien inscriptions along the pods. Her hands trembled. These were failed hybrids, failed experiments. Some were ancient, decayed beyond recognition. Others looked recent, as if the Selvari had still been trying to perfect the process, trying to force a human Selvari hybrid into existence. Her stomach twisted. You've been experimenting on humans." Zara finally spoke. Her voice was low. "Not by choice. The Selvari's darkest secret." Zara turned to them, her expression unreadable. "You asked why we need human DNA. This is why." She gestured toward the failed hybrids. "Because we tried. And we failed. Again and again. Every attempt to merge our species ended in death." She stepped forward, placing a hand against one of the pods. A half-Selvari, half-human creature floated inside, its body twisted and broken, its face frozen in a silent scream. Zara's voice shook. "We didn't create these experiments. We found them." Dr. Carter froze. "Found them." Zara nodded, her silver blue eyes dark with pain. "Long before our world died, before the disease, we discovered a secret hidden deep in our archives. Evidence of something ancient." She turned back to the hybrids. "We weren't the first ones to try this." A chilling silence filled the chamber. The implications were terrifying. Someone else, something else, had tried to merge humans with other species long before the Selvari. And it had ended in horror. Dr. Carter's mind raced. Who did this?" Zara hesitated. Then she whispered two words. "We don't know." The betrayal. Before anyone could respond, the room shook. A distant explosion echoed through the ship. The lights flickered. General Harris grabbed his radio. "Command, report." What the hell was that? A crackling voice responded. "Sir, the ship, someone sabotaged it. We're under attack." Alvarez cursed. "It's a setup." Before they could react, a second explosion rocked the chamber. One of the pods shattered, sending blue liquid spilling across the floor. From the shadows, figures emerged. Selvari soldiers. But these weren't the elegant, composed warriors they had seen before. Their bodies were twisted, their veins blackened, their eyes wild with sickness. Dr. Carter gasped. "The disease. It's mutating them." General Harris drew his weapon. "Fall back. We need to get out of here. Now." Zara's face was pale. "No, this isn't possible." One of the infected Selvari lunged forward, its hands like claws, eyes burning with hunger. Gunfire erupted. The ship screamed around them, the walls shifting violently as if it was rejecting them. Dr. Carter grabbed Zara's arm. "We have to go. Now." But Zara didn't move. She was staring at something behind the broken pods. Dr. Carter turned, and her blood turned to ice. There, in the darkness, a figure stood. Tall, silent, watching. Not Selvari, not human. Something else. something older. And then, it moved. A dangerous choice. The figure in the dark. Dr. Elizabeth Carter couldn't breathe. The figure stood in the shadows, tall and unmoving, its form just barely visible through the flickering emergency lights. It wasn't Selvari. It wasn't human. Then it moved. Not walked. Glided. "Run," General Harris shouted. The team scrambled back, weapons raised. Sergeant Alvarez squeezed the trigger, sending a burst of bullets into the figure's chest. The bullets never hit. They stopped in midair, hanging in place for a split second before melting into nothing. The figure spoke. A deep, impossible voice filled the chamber, not through sound, but directly into their minds. It was never meant to be this way. Dr. Carter gasped, clutching her head as a sharp pain stabbed through her skull. The voice, it wasn't speaking in words. It was speaking in concepts, raw ideas flooding into her mind all at once. The others staggered, gripping their heads, their faces twisted in pain. Zaira alone stood still, her silver-blue eyes wide with something Carter had never seen before. Terror. The figure stepped forward, and finally, the emergency lights flickered just enough to reveal it. It was tall, nearly 7 feet, its body covered in material that wasn't skin, wasn't metal, something in between. It had no face, only a smooth surface where its eyes should have been. And on its chest, a faint symbol glowed. Dr. Carter's heart stopped. She had seen that symbol before. It was on the failed hybrids. It was inside Earth's genetic code. And now it was right in front of her. The ship is falling apart. Before anyone could process what they were seeing, the entire ship shuddered. A voice crackled through General Harris's radio. "Sir, the ship is destabilizing. We need to evacuate now." "Damn it," Harris muttered. "We don't have time for this." The figure raised one hand, and suddenly, Carter felt the air shift. It wasn't attacking. It was offering something. "There is still time," the voice echoed in their heads. "But not for all of you." Zaira shook her head violently. "No, no, no. You were supposed to be gone. You were supposed to be dead." The figure tilted its head slightly, as if studying her. "You never understood, child. Your people were never the ones in control." A new kind of dread filled the room. Dr. Carter took a step forward, her voice shaking. "Who are you?" For the first time, the figure responded with words instead of thoughts. "We are the architects. The truth about humanity." The architects. Dr. Carter felt her pulse pound in her ears. She knew that name. She had seen it buried in the Selvari archives when she had studied the failed hybrids. It was a myth, a theory about an ancient race that shaped evolution across the galaxy. But it wasn't just a myth. It was standing in front of her. Zaira's hands curled into fists. "We destroyed you." Her voice was almost a whisper. "Our ancestors, they wiped you out." The architect's head tilted. "You destroyed nothing." The ship groaned, walls cracking, the organic veins along the surface turning black and rotten. "We gave you everything," the voice continued. "And still, you failed." Dr. Carter's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" The architect turned its faceless head toward her. "Your kind was never supposed to exist, and yet you survived." The words hit her like ice water. Was this it? The force that had created humanity, the ones who had interfered in Earth's evolution. Before she could ask more, the architect stepped back. The choice must be made. The impossible choice. A second voice echoed over the radio. It was the command center. "General Harris, you need to get out now. We can't hold our position much longer." Harris looked at Carter, then at Zaira, then back at the architect. "What choice?" The architect raised a hand. Suddenly, 2 holograms flickered into existence in the air. One showed Earth. The other showed Selvaris, the last survivors of Zaira's people, still trapped in stasis. The architect's voice was calm. "One will survive. One will not. A horrible silence filled the room. You can only save one. Dr. Carter felt her blood turn to ice. You're lying. The architect simply tilted its head. Choose. Sarah stepped forward. No, you don't have the right. The architect didn't react. General Harris swore under his breath. You've got to be kidding me. Dr. Carter's mind raced. If they chose Earth, the Selvari would die. If they chose the Selvari, Earth would die. But how? How could the architects wipe out an entire planet? As if answering her thoughts, the architect moved its hand again. A third hologram appeared. It showed something horrifying, something moving beneath Earth's crust, deep in the planet's core. Something alive. Dr. Carter's stomach dropped. What? What is that? The architect's voice was final. It is what we left behind. She understood immediately. Humanity's entire existence had been a test. And if they failed this test, Earth would be reset, just like so many other planets before it. This was never about saving the Selvari. It was about whether humans deserved to live at all. And they had only minutes to decide. The real enemy. The architect stood still, waiting. Two holograms hovered in the air, one of Earth, the other of Selvaris, the last of Xyra's people in their frozen stasis. One would survive. One would be erased, and the humans had to choose. Dr. Elizabeth Carter's mind raced. She couldn't make this decision. No one could. But the architect's voice was calm, absolute. One will survive. One will not. The ground rumbled beneath them. The ship was dying. But that wasn't the worst part. Because deep within Earth's hologram, something moved. A shape, a shadow, something massive. Something alive. The horror beneath Earth. General Harris gritted his teeth. What the hell am I looking at? The architect turned its faceless head toward him. It is what was left behind. A failsafe. Dr. Carter's throat was dry. Failsafe. The hologram zoomed in. At first, it looked like a dark mass buried deep beneath Earth's crust. But then, it shifted. It breathed. Carter's stomach turned to ice. That's not a failsafe. That's a living thing. Xyra's hands curled into fists. It's an exterminator. A long silence filled the room. The architect's voice remained cold. If humanity fails, the failsafe will activate. It will cleanse your world, and your kind will be reset. Carter's breath hitched. Reset? You mean wiped out? No. The architect turned toward her. Not wiped out. Rewritten. The words hit like a hammer. It wasn't about destroying humanity. It was about restarting it. Turning Earth back into what the architects had intended it to be. A blank slate. A failed experiment. And the failsafe, whatever thing was buried beneath Earth's surface, was programmed to wake up and finish the job. Xyra's rage. Xyra's composure shattered. She lunged at the architect, her silver-blue eyes burning with rage. You dare. You toy with species, destroy entire civilizations, like they're nothing. The architect didn't react. We do not interfere. We correct mistakes. Xyra's voice broke. You did this to us. You caused our extinction. The architect was silent for a long moment. Then, it turned toward her. Your species was a failure. The words hit like a physical blow. Carter flinched as Xyra staggered back, her entire body trembling. But then, something changed. For the first time, Xyra's desperation turned into something else. Cold. Calculated. Fury. She whispered a single word. No. The architect tilted its head. Xyra's gaze darkened. You won't get to decide. And in one fluid motion, she pressed her palm to the ship's interface. Alarms screamed. The holograms flickered violently. What are you doing? Harris barked. Xyra's voice was deadly calm. I'm overriding the failsafe. The architect took a single step forward. You cannot. But it was wrong. Because the Selvari had evolved. And they had learned how to break the rules. The ultimate betrayal. The entire ship shook. The hologram of Earth glowed brighter, too bright. The shadow beneath Earth twitched. And then, Carter saw it. The failsafe was waking up. It had been triggered. By Xyra. Carter's heart pounded. Xyra, what have you done? The Selvari princess turned toward her expression cold. You should be thanking me. Carter took a step back. No. Xyra wasn't trying to save Earth. She was trying to destroy it. You played us, General Harris growled, his gun aimed at Xyra. Xyra's lips curved into a small, sad smile. Did I? Carter's mind raced. Xyra had always been desperate, always hiding something. But now, it all made sense. The Selvari weren't looking for a cure. They were looking for revenge. You never wanted to merge our DNA, Carter whispered. You wanted to wipe us out. Xyra didn't deny it. Her gaze flickered toward the architect. You destroyed my species. I will return the favor. The architect didn't move. It didn't even seem surprised. Instead, it simply raised a hand, and the entire ship twisted. The battle begins. The walls cracked open. From the shadows, figures emerged. Not Selvari, not humans. The last creations of the architects. Tall, twisted, perfect hybrids. The real chosen species, and they were here to erase the rest. Carter grabbed Harris's arm. We have to go. Now. But Xyra didn't run. She turned to the hybrids, a wild fire burning in her eyes. You think you can erase us? She hissed. Her hands glowed, Selvari technology activating at her fingertips. Then let's see who survives. And just like that, the war for humanity's future began. A new beginning, or the end. The battle begins. The Selvari ship was dying. The walls cracked apart, revealing the nightmarish creatures, the architect's true creations. These were not Selvari, not humans. They were the perfect hybrids, the ones who had been designed to replace both species. And now, they had awakened. Xyra stood tall, her silver-blue skin glowing with Selvari energy. The air around her shimmered, reacting to the power she'd unleashed. If we fall today, she whispered, we take them with us. Dr. Elizabeth Carter felt a cold dread settle inside her. This was no longer a mission. This was a war. And Earth was the prize. The fall of the Selvari ship. The hybrids attacked first. They moved faster than anything human, their limbs elongating, twisting, reshaping as they lunged. Some had multiple arms, others had claws, and all of them had eyes that burned with knowledge too old to understand. The soldiers opened fire. Bullets tore through flesh, but the wounds healed instantly. They regenerate. Sergeant Alvarez shouted. General Harris gritted his teeth, then hit them harder. Explosions ripped through the corridors as grenades and plasma rounds detonated, but the hybrids didn't stop. Carter turned to Xyra. If you have a plan, now's the time. Xyra's gaze darkened. There is only one way. She turned toward the ship's core, a massive, glowing structure, pulsing like a beating heart. We overload the core. Carter's stomach dropped. That would destroy everything, including us. Xyra's lips curled into a dark smile. Then we make sure only we survive. She raised her hands, and the ship obeyed. Earth's failsafe awakens. Far below, on Earth, something stirred. The failsafe had been activated. Beneath the planet's surface, deep in the molten core, something ancient began to wake up. A presence, a force, a living machine, designed to wipe out and rewrite humanity if they proved to be a failure. In cities across the world, earthquakes rumbled. Tsunamis formed in the oceans. And in the skies above, something shifted, as if the stars themselves had turned their gaze toward Earth. Humanity was out of time. The architect's final offer. Back on the Selvari ship, the architect stood unmoving, watching the chaos. Dr. Carter turned to it, desperate. If we destroy this ship, if we stop Zyra, will you stop the failsafe? Will you spare Earth? The architect tilted its head. We do not negotiate. We correct. Carter's hands clenched into fists. Then let me make something clear. She stepped forward, her eyes burning with defiance. Humanity was never your mistake to fix. The architect didn't move. Then prove it. And suddenly, it vanished. The fight was now in their hands. The last stand. Alarms blared as the Selvari ship collapsed around them. Zyra had locked herself into the ship's core, feeding her own energy into it, making sure the explosion would erase everything. Dr. Carter, General Harris, and the surviving soldiers raced toward the last escape vessel. We have minutes before this thing blows, Harris shouted. Carter's heart pounded. She turned back. Zyra was still inside the core. She wasn't leaving. Zyra, stop this. You don't have to die. Zyra's gaze met hers. For the first time, she smiled. This is the only way I win. The ship shook violently. The hybrids screamed, their bodies unraveling as the energy field tore them apart. And then, the Selvari princess whispered something. Something Carter would never forget. I wasn't ready for this, but now I am. And then, the ship exploded. Earth's fate. The shockwave ripped through the sky, sending debris burning into the atmosphere. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, the failsafe signal flickered. The presence beneath Earth's crust stopped moving. And then, like a dying star, it collapsed into nothing. The failsafe had been canceled. Earth had survived. But the cost was everything. A new beginning. Dr. Carter, General Harris, and the survivors stood on a military base, watching the burning wreckage fall from the sky. The Selvari were gone. The hybrids were gone. And the architects. No one knew. But something felt different. Carter looked at the holographic report in her hand. Human DNA had changed. The Selvari experiment, the contact with the architects, it had left something behind. She turned toward Harris. What if this wasn't the end? She whispered. What if it was just a beginning? Harris exhaled sharply. Then we better be ready for whatever comes next. The screen faded to black. Final words appeared. Humanity survived. But at what cost? A final message. Deep in the ruins of the Selvari wreckage, a signal pulsed. Not from the architects. Not from the hybrids. But from something else. A lone broken pod opened. A single figure stepped out. Tall. Graceful. Her silver blue eyes flickered. Zyra had survived. And she wasn't alone.